Hey guys, welcome back to the Diaries of the Neurospicy Coach. I believe this is episode 11 now, I think. God, just can't believe it's been like, how many months has it been now? Like 6 months since I started this, which is wild. But today, right, I wanted to talk about this particular topic because it's something that I have struggled with. And I know speaking to clients and, people through the DMs is something that they massively struggle with as well. And they don't realize it's actually an issue. So, what changes when a coach actually understands how your brain works? Honestly, this one is wild to me, right? So I'll talk about some bits, right? So I've had coaches in the past where, the first thing they'll say to me is like, oh, you've cheated on your diet. If I've gone through stress or whatever, and as we know, when we get stressed, we can hold on to water retention, like inflammation and things like that, because we tend to get a little bit more stressed compared to a neurotypical person. Some things can consume us. And my weight had fluctuated up. And the first thing a coach would say to me would be, you're not sticking to your diet. Like, what are you doing? And I remember just feeling so much shame, being like, no, I have stuck to my diet. Oh my gosh. But I didn't even feel like I could even open up and be like, oh, actually, I'm going through a bit of a rough time at the minute. I'm a bit stressed. It'd always be like the worst case scenario. And I had a few coaches like that, because if you've not been following me for a while, I actually talk about this. But I literally had like 4 coaches in 1 year. And I just felt like I was the problem, to the point where I was going to hang my heels up for bodybuilding, because I just thought, wow, I'm just uncoachable. It's me. It's literally me. But it's not, so it's like a neurodivergent coach, right, stops asking what's wrong with you and starts asking like what is getting in the way, right? So one of the biggest things that I will do with my clients, like if they've not stuck to the diet, if they've not done their steps, if they've not, done their gym sessions, they have not checked in, I never shame them. I'm not like, oh, you don't want this. Like, what are you doing? Like, why haven't you stuck to your steps? I never shout at them. I never have a go at them, because that serves no purpose to me. We don't one day wake up and be like, oh, do you know what? I'm just not gonna train today. I just don't fancy it. Can't be asked. Or, today I'm just not gonna stick to the diet. I know there's always a deeper reason. So I'll always say like, oh, what's going on? How you feeling? What's got in the way today? Like, what's the obstacle? Because at the end of the day, like a lot of neurotypical coaches, I'm not saying all, by the way, some of them, my coach is great. But I think it's because I have a lot of knowledge, and I know to structure myself now. But a lot of coaches, they don't understand the neurodivergent brain. So they don't know how to handle us, right? They don't know how to handle us. They don't know the questions to ask, right? So the goal shifts from forcing compliance to understanding barriers, because at the end of the day, like my coach used to get annoyed with me with things, if I really struggled to hit something, I would find myself lying in my check-ins, like if my weight went up from stress, I would literally fake my weight, because I'd be like, oh my God, he's gonna hate me, like if I if I do this, do you know what I mean? And I even like went to the brim of like paying £350 a month for a coach. Not saying he's a bad coach, by all means, he's obviously a good coach, like whatever, but he didn't understand my brain, and he made me feel rubbish all the time. Like a coach is not there to blow smoke up your ass, but they're definitely there to, hype you up and to be better. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, I want to know why things are happening. Because the thing is, like, if a coach says to you, it's fine, don't stress about it, because it can go two ways. The lad that I've got you, which I've had 2 coaches previously, which are the biggest UK coaches, shall I mention, in the competing world. I've had that angle of it, but I've also had angles of it where they're like, just a bit disappointed. Do you know what I mean? And it's just a bit like, okay, they'll just say to me like, don't worry about it, just draw a line under it, tomorrow's a new day, which, yeah, it is, I understand that. But what happens is they don't understand why that cycle have happened in the first place, and they're not addressing it. And as I said, like, some people will address it in like, like, what the hell are you doing? And then some people will just sort of dismiss it. And either way, it doesn't work for us, because if you dismiss it, it'll happen again. And if you ever go at us, we'll feel shame, we'll never speak to you ever again. And chances of us checking in next week is going to be very slim. So that's where I come in, and I'll say to you, like, right, okay, what's going on today? Like, speak to me, communicate with me, like, what's going on? Because it's different, because you create, I create a safe space for my clients. And the things that I can recognise that a neurotypical coach probably can't is executive dysfunction, task paralysis. That's a big one, because I don't just help with, obviously my girlies who watch this already know this, but I don't just, help with diet and training. I help with real life things as well, of like organisation, like getting to appointments on time, help scheduling your week, because these things are what is stopping you from reaching your fitness goals. Sensory overwhelm, hyperfocus, burnout, RSD, these are the things that I work with my clients, because all of these things will play a massive part in us not reaching our goals, right? So, you end up feeling like more understood rather than judged, which obviously improves adherence, because I'm not being funny. Like, I always say to my girls, if they, for example, luteal phase is always a tough one for us. We feel hormone shifts a lot more than a neurotypical would. Some of my girls go completely off track for the full week. That's not abnormal for an ADHD queen. But what I don't say to them is like, right, you messed up this week, so now next time your luteal phase comes in, like your PMS week, I want you to be perfect. Like, no slip ups. I would never say that. Like, I say to my girls, like, the goal is to be better than last time. So that doesn't mean be perfect week. It just means, like, for one of my clients, she struggles with communication, which again is a very, very normal, well, I don't want to say normal, common thing with neurodivergent women. And it's usually because we've been scarred before, and it could be from a coach, like a trauma response, whatever. Communication can be hard because we tend to be independent queens. So I said to my client, like, right, all I want from you from this PMS week is for you to just reach out to me when you're struggling. That's it. So I'm not expecting her to be perfect on a diet. I'm not expecting her to smash all her training sessions or even go to the gym or smash her steps. I'm not expecting that. All I want is change, something different from last time to help prevent that week that she had last time. That's the difference, right? That's the difference. If your coach is saying to you, like, get your shit together, like, you're never gonna get to your goal, like, you're always gonna be, I heard someone, right, said to one of my girls, you're always gonna be fat. You're always gonna be fat. And honestly, like, this particular coach is just an arsehole anyway. But regardless, like, this is what she's saying to her clients, and I'm like, wow, that would make me feel great. Like, I would be thinking, oh well, RSD is coming in, we sabotage ourselves anyway. So the damage that this actually causes to a neurodivergent brain is wild, right? It really, honestly, for me, it really, really damaged my confidence. It gave me imposter syndrome. I felt really worthless, because I thought, when like I remember saying before, that I was really, really burnt out, like really burnt out. And my coach said to me, you clearly don't want your pro card then, why are you bothering? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I don't want it. Like, oh, right. And honestly, I had to rethink. I just thought, right, well, normal people must be just driving through these really bad burnout days and fatigue, and must be what it is, and it does damage your confidence, and like, as I said, one of my clients who's still with me now, she's been with me for about 3 years, after this coach said that to her, like, she'll always be fat. Do you know what, guys, right? Like, this particular client got in shape. She did so well with the way we coached her. She now is going for her first bodybuilding show next year. Obviously, that's not the goal for everyone, but the fact that this poor woman thought that she couldn't lose weight, and obviously the words the last coach told her, like, she'll always be fat, she's lazy, she's fat and lazy. She genuinely believed it. You build up limiting beliefs, and if your coach is telling you that as well, like this woman, I've done a dieting phase, looked unreal when she went to Ibiza. She went into a building phase, which is really scary once you've been on the bigger side of the scale, or the heavier side of the scale, I should say. And then she did a photo shoot, and now she's like dieting down now for a wedding. And then she's starting prep. It's like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, when you find a coach who really, hypes you up, but understands your brain, you can honestly do anything. Theo, come on now. These two have been honestly nightmares today. So I do apologise if you can hear little barks everywhere. So our entire lives, we've been basically told we're not trying hard enough, we're too much, you're lazy, you're dramatic, you're making excuses. If you don't want it, like, what are you doing? Like, stop wasting your time. And as I said, to the point where I I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm clearly uncoachable. Do you know what I mean? So when your coach obviously reinforces these beliefs, you of course believe them. You know, it's like your biggest insecurity and fear inside you. Someone saying, yeah, you are that. And you're like, okay, you know, and it creates a shame cycle. And as I said, I've had to save a lot of girls, and a lot of them I don't get to save, which is really sad. And what I mean by that is like, you know, a lot of them don't feel safe reaching out to the coaches because of the words they told them. So when they join my team, they think it's going to be different because they're so scarred that they never communicate with me. Like they don't feel like it's safe, and they end up leaving because obviously they just can't get over the trying to reach out to me. Trying to reach out to me. So they never get to the goal because they're just in this vicious cycle and nothing's changing. And if nothing changes, nothing's ever going to change. You're just going to be stuck in this cycle. But breaking that cycle can also feel really scary when you've been in such a toxic relationship with a coach. Do you know what I mean? So a shame really improves performance long term. It really doesn't, right? So then you become secretive. So you might cheat on your diet and not tell your coach. You know, you become avoidant. You start skipping check-ins. You don't want to like speak to your coach, like because you're scared of being shouted at and shamed and called out for what you've been doing. I've had girlies who become defensive as well, because at the end of the day, right, I'm not, obviously people can listen to this and be like, oh, amazing, whatever. But one thing that I'm not is I will call you out on your shit as well, right? So I'm always supportive. But if I give solutions and I'm sat there, if I jump on calls with you and I'm helping you and you're not even going to bother trying to, you know, do what I say, and you're constantly complaining about the same thing over and over and over again, I am going to call you out and I'm going to be like, look, you know, I'm here to help you, but I can't come and do the work for you. Do you know what I mean? You do need to want to change. And like for me, I remember like some people are just not ready to change yet. Like for me, I had to, you know, change my ways in regards to like not being secretive all the time. Like if things needed to be changed, I needed to change them. The only person who could change them is me. And sometimes I would try and do it a certain way and it didn't work for my brain. That doesn't mean I quit. I'd try it another way. Do you know what I mean? So my clients who do well are the ones who open up to me and be like, right, okay, this is a problem, like what can we do? Try that and be like, do you know what, that really didn't work for me, like I struggled doing that. Cool, what else can we do? But a lot of my girls, if I do say to them, you know, this is what's happening, like, you know, I'm here for you, blah blah blah, but this needs to change. Sometimes they can get like defensive, but they can be defensive because it's a coping mechanism that they've had to make with a previous coach before, where, you know, they're calling them out, but they're not calling them out in a very nice way. They're shaming them. They can become defensive. So when someone is like, you know, helping them, they can still be defensive because they're like, no, I don't want to hear it. And you do become more inconsistent as well, because obviously you're scared to ask for help. And you just struggle with that side of things, you know. So like, because you're trying to protect yourself from criticism essentially, and it comes under very much RSD. So one of the main things, and I still have this with my girls sometimes, you know, as I said, like some of my girlies obviously being ADHD with my coaching team, a lot of them are with me for a long time, and some of them will come and go. Do you know what I mean? And me choosing to work with neurodivergent women, that is just part of my business model now, that I have to be okay with. Sometimes people are going to be with me for a few weeks and then leave. It's not what I'm used to, but at the end of the day I have to meet people where they're at, and I can obviously only help them so far. But like a lot of my girls, like who've been with me, they sort of go quiet when they are struggling, right? So why neurodivergent clients disappear and what it actually means, right? So, you know, as I said, this happens more times than once with me. And before I'd be like, oh God, have I done something wrong? You know, obviously being neurodivergent as well, I think, oh my God, have I upset them? But now obviously reading and understanding myself, I understand they're going through something. So I just say to them, like, you know, I hope you're okay. If you're struggling, please reach out to me. I don't keep on being like, because sometimes I remember when I didn't check in before, because I wasn't very well, I had an abuse off my coach, and I thought, Jesus freaking Christ, hun, like, calm your tits. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, we build these habits based on what happened to us as well. So most coaches will assume like no check-in, they don't care. And often it is a complete opposite. Like they care so much that they want a perfect check-in, and because it's not a perfect check-in, they don't want to they don't want to check in because they don't want to disappoint your coach. And that is often what it means. So the client cares so much that, you get overwhelmed if it's not perfect, if it's not a perfect week. You don't want to feel shame because you're like, oh, well, I haven't actually done anything. So, I don't really want to put myself in a position where I'm going to get rubbish feedback and I'm going to feel crap, right? So the common reasons that I've noted down that I notice, they miss a few of their targets. Again, all or nothing thinking. If it's not a perfect week, then I'm just not going to do anything and I'm not going to check in. They feel like they failed. They don't know how to explain what is happening in their life. As I said before, like, we struggle to process emotions. They're embarrassed. That's a big one. You feel embarrassed, you feel shamed because you're just like, oh wow, like, why can't I just freaking stick to the plan? And you're stuck in freeze mode. And these are the few points that I've noticed within my girlies for why they don't check in. I don't automatically be like, they've not checked in, or they clearly don't give a shit. That's never my thought process. But for a lot of neurotypical coaches, because they're used to people, doing what they say. So like, this is the plan, follow it, and people follow and they get great results, right? Yeah, cool. But our brains don't work like that, unfortunately. So if you treat us like that, this is where we're going to feel a lot of shame. So like, the silence isn't always, that we don't want it. It just means that we're struggling and maybe the way it's set up is not working. And sometimes like our nervous system isn't overwhelmed, but it is our responsibility then to just communicate that with your coach if it's safe to do so. Like, I probably say 1,000,000 times to my girls, like, this is a safe space. This is a safe space, because I have to keep reinforcing that this is a safe space because they've not been in a safe space. Or, like, the only way I can describe it is like being in an abusive relationship. If you've been in an abusive relationship for so long, you're going to be walking on eggshells. You're going to be doing things a certain way to protect you. So if you get into a new relationship, it's not like you've forgotten all these traumas. You are very much going to be walking on eggshells still until you realise that, like, oh, actually, I'm safe. That's so it's almost like that. And the best coaches, they get curious and not angry. And I think a lot of you probably do get a lot of angry coaches as well, but it's one thing that I'm never disappointed my girls, and I never get angry with my girls ever, right? So rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria in the coaching relationship, fear of disappointing your coach, right? I get this probably at least once every check-in. I'm really sorry, I feel like I've disappointed you. I didn't want to check in because I feel like I've disappointed you. You'll never disappoint me, right? You'll never disappoint me. Do you know, like, sign up to a program trying to better yourself and you trying your hardest, like, especially if you've got children, working full time, whatever it is. Like, these are massive not triggers, obviously I'm not saying your child is a trigger. But obviously they can be overstimulating for you, do you know what I mean? And work as well, like, it's a frigging trigger, like, do you know what I mean? Being around people all the time, like, we need a break, right? So trying to better yourself with these things going on is massive. Do I expect you to be perfect? No, I don't. Obviously, if you're an athlete, we do need to be a bit perfect because we have a timeline. But as a lifestyle client, no, I do not expect you, because rewiring your brain takes longer than a month. It took me a year, at least a year and a half, to rewire my brain from all my limiting beliefs and things like that, right? So a coach can then become a safe person. As I said, I feel like I am a very safe person. Like, my clients come to me with anything. Literally anything, right? Breakups, divorce, a bad day, the child being very overstimulated and they feel guilty over it, like, you name it. I've had it. Like, my clients are having to go through court, like, with the stress. Like, I've held my client's hand through all life, like, what's it called? Life milestones, I was going to say, but like, it's not that. But all life things, right? A source of validation and an authority figure as well. So like, suddenly a simple message of like, how was your week? Feels like, explain why you're not doing good enough. And that's really sad, right? So sometimes, especially at the start of a journey with my clients, like, these questions can be triggering because you don't look at it as what it is. You are making it up into something that you're insecure of, So if I said like, oh, how's your week going? You can be like, oh my God, she knows I'm not sticking to it. Do you know what I mean? But that's not what I'm thinking. I'm asking you how your week's going, like, because I want to check in on you. Do you know what I mean? But if you've not done it, that's like, you start spiraling. You think, oh my God, she thinks I'm doing rubbish and that's why she's messaging me, So like, I'll never judge you either, right? If you've had a rubbish week, all I'll say to you is, right, make me a promise. Next time you'll tell me sooner. Like, I'll never judge you. Do you know why I won't judge you? Because I've been that client. God, my God, like, I was the worst client ever. Not because obviously I wanted to be, because I was different. You know, I had a different brain. I cheated on my diet. I cheated on my prep. Did a prep. I was eating pizza Hut, like loving life, drinking, like, do you know what I mean? The reason why I'm understanding is because I was that client. I was a freaking nightmare. Do you know what I mean? I remember telling the truth. My coach having to go up me, lying to him, being like, oh, you know, I think I'm due on. I was due on about 10 times in a month. Honestly now, I must think I'm due on again. And he'd probably think, well, to be fair, it shows how not very knowledgeable he was, because he didn't catch on to that. And I got away with it. With an ADHD brain, if we get away with it, we keep doing it, which is not a good habit to have, but it's just what happens, isn't it? But your nervous system obviously believes then, and obviously, like, why some clients are like, why would we over-explain, right? Apologize all the time. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for this. And or my clients will know this as well. When they apologize, I'm like, why are you apologizing? What are you sorry for, right? We got nothing to say sorry for, right? Stop saying sorry for existing, right? Avoid check-ins, right? And you know what? A lot of my girlies don't avoid check-ins now, which I'm really proud of, because they used to, and now they don't. Even if they've had a rubbish week, they'll say to me like, rubbish week, Lo, and I'm like, thank you for checking in. Thank you for checking in, right? Because at the end of the day, I can't do anything if you don't check in and tell me. Because at the end of the day, I'm great at what I do, but I'm not Jesus, right? I'm not a mind reader. I haven't got freaking CCTV in your kitchen, keeping an eye on you all the time, like Big Brother house, right? I haven't got that. Do you know what I mean? And then panic when they receive feedback. I've had that as well. One of my girls, when they first met me, well, not met me, joined me, she was like, I don't want to open it up, because she knew she didn't have a good week. And I was like, I promise you, Queen, it's not a bad check-in, I promise you. And it took her 2 days to open it, because she was genuinely scared, because obviously our last coach was not very nice. And then we've got all or nothing thinking. I think we love that one, don't we? All or nothing thinking, and how it shows up in check-ins, right? So it's either a perfect check-in or a failed check-in. And this is one of the biggest things as well, right? If, as I said before, if they've not done everything, you know, they won't check in, right? Because it's either perfect or failed, right? You're either on plan or off plan, right? So if you've missed a meal, that's it then. Oh, well, I may as well be off plan for the rest of the week because I failed. No, you haven't. And I've said this metaphor before, but like, if you go into the shop and you plan on spending £1 and you spend a fiver, would you then say, I'm going to go and spend £1,000 now because I've spent £4 over budget? No, you wouldn't. You just go out with your £5 worth of shopping and be like, do you know what, it was £4, I'll get over it. That's what it's like. Do you know what I mean? Because if you miss one meal, or you eat one meal off plan, and then saying, oh well, I may as well just eat anything I want now and binge, that's essentially the same thing. But you wouldn't do it, because obviously money has more of a thing, doesn't it? Like £1,000 and a pound is a big difference. Do you know what I mean? But it's a big difference with your eating as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's just trying to find that perspective as well. So like, we live in extremes, right? So, you know, examples of that is like, one missed session, ruined week. One meal out, diet failed. One bad check-in, coach will be disappointed. And I've had girls as well where they're like, please don't drop me, please don't drop me. That breaks my heart as well, because I'll never drop them. Like, when you're struggling, drop you. Like, and again, I know one of my girls, she's an athlete, her coach did drop her for this. And actually, like, it was probably the best thing ever, because she found me and she's been with me, I think, 3 years. And day and night difference. Honestly, when I first met this particular, I was going to say a name, but I'm not going to say a name. First met this client to where she is now. Wow, literally wow, like a different person, right? You know, a coach obviously sees a small bump, but you see meltdown, like, my life's ended, like, that's it now. And you know, we see this and I laugh because it's funny, but this is our thought process, like, oh, what's the point? I'm not cut up to this. Nah, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm you know, I'm done. Do you know what I mean? And part of my coaching, right, it becomes teaching flexibility. This is a big one, right? Especially my girlies who, if a meal plan is like too rigid and they're like, oh God, like, I can't stand eating this breakfast every day, I teach them macro tracking. Now, I can count, oh my God, on so many hands how many times my clients have started macro tracking and they're like, no, not doing it. And they rebel against it, right? And the client I was just talking about, she was one of these, and I was like, right, just stick with it, it's going to change your life. And all of a sudden, just clicks, right? And the way you get it is by not being perfect, right? If you try to measure out everything to the gram when you first start macro tracking, you're going to fail, right? Because you haven't got the headspace for that, because you're just working out what a macro is, so trying to have perfect macros, it's never going to work. But if you allow yourself to not have, all or nothing mindset, and you allow yourself to be like, allow for mistakes to happen, this is where you're like, oh, all right, okay. And it's like a penny drops every day, like, oh, okay, I didn't realize I could do that. And you just learn. And that's what like I do with my girlies as well, because I do think like macro tracking is just an incredible thing for an ADHD brain especially. And then we've got like, I basically help seeing that progress exists in the grey area, because it's black and white. It's either good or it's bad. So I introduce people to the grey area, which we don't like to be in, but it's not because we don't like to be in. We think we disappoint people if we step out of the black and white zone and we step into the grey zone. So what good communication looks like between a coach and a client, because communication for my coaching is everything. If you know that you are not ready to be able to communicate through the hard times, it's going to waste your money, right? It's no point signing up to me. I can't do my job. I'm not going to get the results you'd hoped for, because as I said, I don't have a hidden camera in your car, in your living room, in your kitchen, keeping an eye on you, right? So good communication isn't necessarily good communication, right? Or I should say more communication, right? It's not that, right? It's just clear communication, because I think some people think like, oh, I have to communicate every single day and it overwhelms people. It's not. I just need to know. Do you know what I mean? So examples of that: direct expectations, clear deadlines, less. I can't even say this word that I wrote. I'll miss that one. No mind reading required, right? So sometimes my clients can't explain how they feel, and they feel like they have to write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. And if you're in a moment of spiral and you have to write a paragraph, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it, right? So sometimes I'll say to my clients, name the feeling of how you're feeling, right? So they'll just be frustrated, burnt out, and that will spark up the conversation then. And then when I start opening them up, they realize, okay, the door's open. This is a safe space. I'm going to enter now. And we'll just do that, one word things, right? Safe words, I like to call them. Do you know what I mean? Or I'll just say to them, because a lot of coaches don't allow voice notes. I welcome voice notes, because sometimes when we've got a lot to say and we've got a lot of emotions, texting will just piss you off. And you'll start typing and you get so annoyed that you're like, I'm not texting her. Fuck this. Mind my French. But it's true. And I know that because I'm like it as well. So I'm like, right, I would rather you send me a 25-minute voice note expressing how you're feeling, because I can put it in times too, so don't worry. Rather than you not send that message. Do you know what I mean? And rather me try and mind read and just think that you're doing well, and then a missed check and comes in and I'm like, oh, that's a surprise. Do you know what I mean? So you'll thrive more, knowing what is expected. Do you know what I mean? And I think why it matters to communicate as well. Do you know what I mean? Because with an ADHD brain especially, if we don't know why it matters, we won't do it. If we don't know how important it is, we won't do it. And a big part of that is just knowing it is a safe space, because I had a call this week actually with a client who signed up. And first thing I said is with your coach, did you communicate? Because it's a big problem for me if you can't communicate. And as I said, I don't need to know all your feelings. I just need to know if you're struggling, or, as I said, give me a safe word. We'll communicate together for when the bad days come, that we'll do something that works for your brain and it doesn't overwhelm you. And she said, no, I didn't. So that was a bit of a red flag. And I was like, oh, right, okay. But she was like, but I didn't feel safe to do so. Green flag. I'll change my red flag to a green flag, right? Because if you're not safe to do so, of course you're not going to reach out, and of course you're not going to communicate. And you need to know that you can tell me anything without being judged, because if you feel like you're going to be judged, then you're not going to message me, right? And there is such a small fine line between accountability and shame as well. So it's being accountable but then being shamed. If you're constantly getting called out, that's no longer accountability, because you're not going to want to stick to it because you feel shamed. You're going to be like, well, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do that? Do you know what I mean? And loads of coaches actually think they'd be like holding us accountable as well by shaming us. And they might say to us, "Oh, you're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. I'm just trying to hold you accountable." But like calling us lazy and calling us, fat is not keeping us accountable, hun. Like, or too skinny, or do you know what I mean? It's not. It's shaming us, and it makes us want to run away from the plan, and not lean into the plan even more. Because it's just a massive trigger. So I've talked about all this now. So what I wish every coach knew about working with the neurodivergent women, right? Because I do think it should be researched now, because a lot more people are getting diagnosed and a lot of coaches don't know how to handle us, right? She probably isn't inconsistent on purpose, right? She's not. She likely cares more than you realize. Missing targets doesn't mean she doesn't want the goal. Her nervous system matters as much as her macros, because and that's the thing, a lot of neurotypical coaches don't know anything about nervous system, right? She doesn't need lower expectations. She needs better support structures. She doesn't need an amazing diet plan or amazing training plan or a new, do you know what I mean? She just needs better structures to join A and B, do you know what I mean? Meet you in the middle. She needs better support structures. She doesn't need rescuing, right? She needs understanding, and we need empathy as well, right? She doesn't need less accountability. She needs accountability delivered in a way her brain actually can progress from like, things we can actually process, right? So as I said, like, having a neurodivergent coach, in my opinion, is golden for your brain. Like, it'll change your life, honestly. And I think it'll give you a new lease of life as well, because yes, I'll give you the bare minimum of a training plan and a diet plan like every other coach, and a supplement plan, but it's the things I do within my coaching that makes me different from a neurotypical coach. Like, I'll help you to adhere to the plan. I don't just give you a plan and be like, right, you need to stick to that, otherwise you're not going to get to your goal. I'll be the puzzle that pieces you together to be able to stick to that diet plan, and if it doesn't work for you, I'll teach you how to macro track in a neurodivergent way where you'll understand how to do it. I'll help you be more adherent to your training program. I basically am the missing puzzle piece that basically put me in the middle of you and your goal. I don't just be like, here's your plan, get on with it, don't slip up, don't miss a check-in. If you miss a check-in, I'm always going to be that shoulder that you can lean on when you're having a tough time, because at the end of the day, life is not always kind, and life things happen and we want to run away and we want to hide, and I'm basically going to help you come out of that hiding space and be like, come on, it's fine, we don't need to be 100%, we're going to show up as 10% today, and that's okay. And again, this might be like, oh, okay, she's soft, she's never getting me to my goal. As I said, like, I am not soft. I'm very straight talking. I have autism, so I'll never lie, and I'll never blow smoke up your ass. I'll hold your hand, but I will also call you out on your shit if it needs to happen. If the same thing's happening, as I said, like, if you keep making the same mistake, I will say to you, what are we going to do about it? Why, if this has happened, what, the first time, second time, third time, what are we going to do together to put something in place so we don't keep doing that? And if if that client doesn't help themselves, I'm going to say to you, like, you're not helping yourself, so I'll always call you out when, these things are happening, but it is a fine line, and I feel like I'm very good at that fine line. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really wanted to talk about this because I know a lot of potential clients want to work with me and they don't really know what that looks like, and they don't know, how to compare me and a normal neurotypical coach. So now you know, and if you do have any more questions for me, just let me know. Send me a voice note if you want, and we can get chatting.